Everyone, this is Ashley Ellenboss with Skyhouse Herb School and Apothecary, and we're going to start Herbs of the Month. So for February, our Herb of the Month is Damiana, and I have some Damiana plant here. This one is from Mountain Rose. They provide really high quality organic herbs. So this is where I source the herbs, especially the ones that I can't grow or forage here in Minnesota. So Damiana, the Latin name is Turnera diffusa, and this plant is native to Mexico, South and Central America, usually kind of more in dry, arid places. And this plant is a really great one for the month of February because it's an aphrodisiac. So it's an herb of love. But the cool thing is it's not only for helping you increase your libido, maybe for partnership, but it also, I find, it increases our internal libido for loving ourselves and loving our lives. So let's talk a little bit about this plant, a little bit more about its origins, and then I'll show you how to use it. There's a lot of different ways to use this herb as medicine. So what I love about this plant is it has two main looks. It has this sort of like dead, dried out desert plant with, where it basically looks like a dead bush. And then once the rains come, it has these beautiful leaves, these yellow flowers. I'm just going to screen share a picture from, this is from our Roots and Spheres course. This is the handout that students get. So you can see here, this is a picture of Damiana. And it's this beautiful kind of waxy yellow flower and these big, or actually they're not very big at all. These, they're big, large veined, but these small leaves. And you can think about this as a shrubby bush. It can get up to 6 feet tall, but most of the time, Damiana as a plant grows as a bush and it sort of creeps along the desert or along the ground. So I just wanted to show you that picture so you can get a sense of the coloring of this plant. And I feel like the color yellow is often associated with the solar plexus. And while this plant does have a long history of use as an aphrodisiac, I also feel like it has an effect on our sense of self and our own will and willpower. But it does it in a very sneaky way, which is why I think it's such a great plant of Venus. Because what Damiana does is it's both a nervous system relaxant, so it works on the parasympathetic nervous system to relax, rest, digest, but it also has some activity on the sympathetic nervous system, which is that more activate, think, respond, right? So we have this plant that allows our nervous system to gently decide which branch do we want to activate. Now, I will say for most of us who are already in a hyperstimulated state, we will find Damiana to be quite relaxing. Sorry, that was my phone. Isn't that annoying? Let me turn that off. So we will find it relaxing. Now, I just brewed some Damiana tea. Isn't this beautiful? Look at this color. It's this golden color. And the smell is just out of this world. There is no plant I have ever met that smells anything like Damiana. It is a whole scent profile of its own. And I was talking with a girlfriend who's taking the Roots and Spheres course, and she was like, it smells like forest and a perfumery and the woods and the ocean. And she was like, just like basically like everything in nature you could think of, plus like all the best things of, modern life, I feel like are encapsulated in the scent profile of this plant. So it is delicious. I just actually served it. I had some family come over last night and I served it to them and they were like, what is this tea you blended? And they're like, what's in it? I was like, it's just one herb. It's just Damiana. And we had a really nice visit. The energy got relaxed, calm. And I feel like this plant just does that. It just has this very embracing, warm, comforting feel to it. And it does that for our nervous system. Now, if you tend to be more on the depleted side and you have very low energy and you're kind of dragging, you will get a little bit of a boost. This plant does contain teeny tiny amounts of caffeine. I mean, really such minuscule amounts that when it's labeled by the FDA as an herbal tea, it says without caffeine because it's such a trace amount. But we as herbalists and sensitive people know that even just a small amount of a compound, we can notice its effects. So, some people might notice a little bit of a stimulating effect, while other people won't notice that at all. And it's interesting because in our group, our Roots and Spheres group that are taking this plant, I would say majority of the people are finding they're getting better sleep, having very vivid dreams, but really good sleep. There's a few people who've noticed that they actually are not sleeping as well. But what they found was they were drinking too much or taking too much. And so when they lowered their dose, their sleep got better. So more is not always better when it comes to Damiana. The average dose is about between 1 to 3 teaspoons per 3 cups of water. And that would be something that for a plant diet you would drink throughout the day. But some people who just, want that general relaxing, you might take like half a teaspoon for a cup and a half of water. And the other key thing is that you have to only steep it for maybe about 7 to 10 minutes. If you steep it too long, the tannins come out and it gets really, really drying. But the trick that I've taught my students and my clients is add a little bit of milk to it. So I really like unsweetened oat milk. I add this to my Damiana. This is what I served last night when my family came to visit. It just makes it kind of like, I don't want to say it's like a chai, but it just gives it a little bit of a softening so that you don't get that dry mouth feel from the tannins in the plant. But if you find that if you steep it for like 20, 30 minutes and you drink it, your mouth will be like, it won't be as pleasant. So you could add more milk, more cream, whatever it is, that will help bind those tannins, but better just to let it steep less. Now, let me talk a little bit more about the history and the traditional uses of Damiana. So Damiana was originally first, I guess, having recorded use when the Spanish missionaries went to Mexico, and they found that the Mexicans were using this plant along with cane sugar as an aphrodisiac. So they were using it to help stimulate their libido, and also to recover from let's just say sexual encounters, right? So like to help them recover if their body was depleted after a lot of activity. Now, the reason that also came up for them was that this plant was used traditionally for long journeys. So sorry, it was also used to help a person recover from a long trip. So if people were, let's say, like, having to migrate or doing long hunting trips, they would drink Damiana tea or bring the plant along with them to help them recover and to have that endurance for those long trips and travels. So we could think about that also in terms of our love, our love encounters. If we want to have a longer lasting love encounter, we want endurance for that, Damiana is going to be a really great plant. So what else can I say about this herb? I talked about the two looks of it, sort of that dead and then a really alive look. And I feel like this speaks to the plant's resilience. It gives us as individuals, not for the pleasure or sake of anyone else, but for the fortification of who we are. It gives us this inner resilience and inner choice, which I just love. I can't say enough about this plant. I think it's one that everyone should try at least for a week and see how you feel. Because what I've found is that it really helps you settle into your body and mind and be able to assess your own needs in a non-judgmental way. If you think about it like this, think about your nervous system. When our nervous system is activated, we're in that flight, fight, freeze, barf. I don't know. There's lots of different things you can do under a stress response. When you're in that state, it's really hard to slow down and think about, how am I feeling? What do I need right now? Those questions are not really, there's no space or time for that because we're in survival mode. So what drinking Damiana tea does, especially if we can do it earlier in the day, is it gives our nervous system a chance to relax, to settle, and to be a little bit alert, to pay attention to what our needs are. And so many students have said in the Roots and Spheres course that, like, yeah, I noticed that I am able to be like, oh, my room is really dry. And so they put on a humidifier and they're like, that just changed everything. But it wasn't until they started drinking Damiana that they started to notice what their body actually needed in real time. So I love that. And again, it gives you that little bit of space, that little bit of distance, like we can get from meditation or just quiet inquiry, journaling, just that little bit of a gap so that we can assess how we're doing before we react, right? I was just in a meeting where we were talking about the 3 A's. The 3 A's are awareness, acceptance, and action, but they have to happen in that order. And it's actually quite a slow process. So first, if there's something going on in your nervous system or in your life, the first thing we have to do is become aware of it and have awareness and like thoughtfulness, like really assess how, and the best question to start with is, how am I feeling and where am I feeling it? And so just to come to that very, very first question can then lead us to accepting it. Because if we can't accept how we're feeling or what's happening, then whatever action we take is not going to land. So if we can say to ourselves, I'm feeling tired, like I did earlier today, and I was like, I need to lay down. But I had to accept the fact that I was feeling tired. I had to accept and actually, believe myself. If I laid down, I would feel better. So I had to go through that before I laid down and actually took some rest and gave myself permission to take that action. And then I was open to receiving the benefits of that action because I believed in it. I believed that it would help. So we often skip that step of acceptance. So I want us to try that if you're going to maybe work with Damiana or just in your own daily life. What happens when you slow down your awareness and move into acceptance before you take action? What possibilities might become available then? Another few things about Damiana is I want to talk about some of its actions. So it's considered to be a warming plant. It's drying. So if you run dry, that's why I recommend adding a little bit of a plant-based milk. It's diffusing. So it's going to increase blood flow throughout the body, which is really good for your skin. It's really good for your circulatory system, for your digestive system. Interestingly enough, it's also a little bit of a laxative, but it doesn't work like a stimulating laxative like Senna or Cascara Sagrada, which irritates. It has these anthraquinones that irritate the lining of your digestive system or your colon, really. Instead, Damiana acts as a relaxant for the colon. So if you tend to be the type of person who poops little pellets, like not maybe maybe because you're dry and don't eat enough fiber, but if you feel like it's tension related, when you're under stress, you're able to poop less, then you might find that drinking Damiana over the course of a week or 2 weeks, that pattern starts to change, that all sphincters in your body start to relax and open because you feel safe. And you feel like, again, this inner focus of, I'm okay because I checked in with myself and I asked myself what I needed. And then I responded and I gave myself what I needed. That circle of self-love action builds trust in ourselves and trust in our bodies that then allows us to become soft and open and available for intimacy and available for full bowel movements and available to speak our truth, right? All of these ways that when we're in that fierce state, we'll just kind of shut them all up, right? They'll get tight, tight and cramped up. And I was reading in King's American Dispensary, which was written in the late 1800s, that King was saying that this was an excellent herb for the frigid type. And while back then, frigid types were basically like women, like prude women, which you can imagine, not cool. However, if we think of it as an overall energetic pattern, a frigid person is frigid, cold, and frigid is also rigid. It's hardened. And so I think that, when we think about it, could be a male, a woman, or any, really any gender. Someone who is cold and tight would really benefit from this herb. So, and again, not for the sake of someone else, but first for the sake of the self. And so that's what I would recommend you do. Now, another thing that you can do, another way to use this herb is as an incense. And so this was traditionally burned also in Mexico. So what you would do is you would just take a little bit of the dried herb, and it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful aromatic. So I'm just gonna hold the flame to it, move it across. I don't know if you can see. Boop. And it's gonna smoke. Do you see that? It doesn't stay burnt for long because it's not dense. It's not gonna hold the fire, but it's enough. And it smells, it's just such a relaxing and calming fragrance to burn in the air. So this is another way that you can connect with Damiana. I also have a tincture that I bought from 4 Element Herbals. This is it here. Oops, I don't know. You probably can't see it. Boop. But it looks like every other tincture. It's it looks like this. And so you can also just take doses on your tongue. I would say maybe about 1 dropper full would be a good place to start. And my favorite is the tea, just because I love the flavor and I love the warmth. When you drink a warming herb in a warm state, it just it multiplies that positive benefit. So it's also antitussive, which is really good. So it will keep you from coughing. And I have a little tiny cough I'm working on. So it's been really helpful with that as well. So I think I'll leave you with that. I welcome your questions that you might have about this plant, but I really encourage you this month in February to try it. Try it out, especially if you tend to run on the cool side, if you tend to run dry, add this in. If you tend to run really damp, then you might not need to add any sort of milk at all. You could probably just drink it as a tea straight up. But play around with it. Let me know what you think. And I wish you all a wonderful month ahead. Cheers.